All right, so let's get started. And yeah, thanks everyone for choosing my talk. And yeah, came here, and I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I have small news, not big deal, but this NDC Oslo is my very, very first time talking in-person conference. So bear with me if I start to shake or, I don't know, look too happy or stuff like that. It's my first time. But anyway, everyone, gains skills by learning, by doing. So yeah, I would take the opportunity. So yeah, my today's talk is about, well, as you can see from my slides, it's about the Jamstack. Jamstack that works for everyone. The reason why I insisted everyone is because to tell you, I like to share with you a story from my experience. So I'm working in a company called Storyblok right now, but before joining the current company where I work, I used to work as a freelance front-end developer. So while I was working with my clients, a lot of them were interested in to migrate their monolithic projects to a headless architecture. But the thing is, quite often I have heard from them that they were telling me, you know what, I'm really interested in to migrate our monolithic system to a headless architecture, but there's always something problem that they were having concern. And I asked them, what is it? Tell me. So they told me that, well, it's really attractive, modern architecture. However, it's not friendly for us. Us means business users, such as marketers, content editors, even sometimes translator, anyone who doesn't write the code. So they were telling me that it's not friendly for them. And I asked them, what exactly, which part is not friendly for you guys? And they answered me that, well, if I want to make some of the changes, I need to ask sometimes the developers' help, and I don't like that. And we want to have more freedom, without asking for help from developers. We want to create content, change the content by ourselves when we can. So that was quite a pain point, in my opinion, because as a developer, as a front-end developer, I really, really love Jamstack architecture. And it's so nice for developers because, first of all, you can separate the head, means the front-end part, and body, back-end. So based on this layout, then you will be able to choose the technologies that you want to choose, right? So if you like, let's say, I don't know, Next or Vue, Next.js, Gatsby, you're free to choose any kind of technologies depending on what you like to use or the decisions your project manager will make. But, content editors, marketers, basically business users, they don't care about it. They don't care about, or it's not their business, first of all. I mean, so we need to listen from business users' point of view too. So in my opinion, as a front-end developer, I have been feeling okay, there's always conflicts between business users and developers. And many times I had to compromise, to stick with as they prefer to stay in a monolithic architecture and maintaining, but I was not willing to do it, something like this. And they were also not happy because, they wanted to improve, their content management system, but they figured that out, it's not friendly for them. So they had to go back to the old kind of architecture. So I was searching the way, to find the win-win, approach for everyone. And there it is, I found. So today's my talk contains, I would say over 90% of my talk is a live demo. So you're going to see in an action how it works. I would say mainly the perspective from the developers, but I'm also going to include how the business users will be able to manage the content from their side. So there will be a demo. And yeah, in this demo, I would like to achieve two main tasks. First of all, I would like to enable the full feature of real-time, which means live editing visual editor feature from the Headless CMS side. And the final task would be deploying this demo to a hosting service. So now you heard my goals for today's talk, so wish me luck, and hopefully the demo will succeed. And before we dive into the demo, let me very quickly introduce about myself, because let me tell you, I just started to talk in conferences since this March, so it's less than a year. So for many of you, I guess that it could be like, who the heck is she? So here I am. I'm Arisa Fukuzaki. My name is, sorry, I already said my name. You can tell I'm so nervous. Anyway, so I'm originally from Japan. So I grew up until 24 years old in my country, but I moved to Germany since 2017. Fun facts about me: before changing my career to developer job, I used to be actually a cabin attendant, flight attendant, yeah. So interestingly, we had a lot of like aviation related, industry kind of talks. So I feel a little bit coincidence, but anyway, that's long story in short. So I work at Storyblok as a developer relations engineer. So as a dev role, my main task is giving talks at the conferences like this in NDC Oslo or including online. I have much more experience in online, so this opportunity would be very interesting for me. And other tasks are communicating with the end users, mostly the developers who are using Storyblok, and also engaging to communicate with them in the community that we have at Storyblok. So that's pretty much about what I do at my work, but only talking about the work is boring. So besides, from my work, I am an ambassador at the British programming education school called Girl Code. So yeah, and also I have my podcast in Japanese and in English, although the nowadays frequency to update episodes are a little bit getting a bit slower, but I'm still doing it. So if you're interested in, let me know. I'm happy to talk. And I also love to write about tech blogs as well as organizing community. So I have a Japanese tech community called Lilac, and recently we reached over 90 community members. So I do online tech communities for them almost every month. So that's what I'm doing besides from my work. From the tech stack perspective, I love React-based frameworks, libraries. So yeah, I love basically Next.js, Gatsby.js, and of course Jamstack too. So that's why today's my talk is going to be heavily related to Jamstack. All right, enough talking about myself. So let's get back to the point. So I'd like to start to ask from this question: why Gatsby.js and Headless CMS? So let me start from Gatsby.js. I have two main reasons, first of all. Well, Gatsby has launched recently V4 a few months ago. So before that, until Gatsby V3, it used to be that Gatsby was saying that we are static site generation. So there was no other choices, to serve the content. But since this V4 launched, now they are allowing us to choose from three options. Which are SSG, static site generation by default, and server-side rendering, SSR, and then their new brand system, deferred static generation. So you're able to choose how you want to serve the content, depending on the way you want to do. So that's a huge plus. And the second reason is that, well, if you are developing Gatsby projects, you don't have to worry about to, find the new hosting service. Instead, Gatsby already has the, default hosting service integrated in it. So why not to use? You can shortcut your time. And moving on to the Headless CMS. So as you can see, I chose Storyblok this time? Well, I can guess that, yeah, a lot of you might think like, okay, come on, she works at Storyblok. That's why you chose Storyblok, right? Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason, but not just, this one reason. I have two main reasons for that. So first of all, Storyblok already has the real-time visual editor integrated in it, so that you don't have to, integrate or build from scratch to create such kind of feature. You already have that by default. So no complicated, extra work to do that. And yeah, extra, visual information will help for content editors, business users, as well as the developers too. In fact, I really enjoy developing, the project with Storyblok because it really shortcut my developing, time. So if I needed to develop one project for 2 weeks, I was able to minimize to half because I compared it with the other Headless CMS and then tested out with the Storyblok, and it really helped me. It really helped me to, minimize the development time too. So the second reason I chose Storyblok is, well, Storyblok is based on the nestable component blocks, which means that we are based on the atomic design theory. If you're interested in to know about the atomic design, there's the free PDF or ebook, yeah, if I'm correct, available, so you can search it. I'm not going to talk about too much details about because I will be able to talk another session about atomic design. So shortcut, but basically, if you use this component-based blocks, architecture, you will be able to simplify the complicated, content easily. All right, in my opinion, I think I talked quite long enough intro, so I'm kind of person preferred to have a more live coding instead of showing you a bunch of slides. So let's get going. Moving on to my VS Code. So first of all, to get started, I recommend you to grab one of the Gatsby starters. Gatsby has already a lot of nice starters ready for you in their documentation. So you can grab one. In this case, I chose the default starter, which is the most popular and the easiest. So after cloning one of their starter, I have 3 packages installed in here additionally. So the first one is called Storyblok JS client, and the second package is called Gatsby source Storyblok, and the third package is called Storyblok editable. So if you are already familiar with Gatsby, you may have paid attention for the second package, Gatsby source, where is it? Yeah, here, Storyblok. So this is actually Gatsby's source plugin, which means that we need to configure at Gatsby's config file. So I'm going to do that. So to do that, let's open up the Gatsbyconfig.js file. Here is where I have written the configuration. The details of the syntax or the options of the values are available at Gatsby's documentation, so I'm not going to, again, dig deeper too much. But the most important point in here is right here, access token. So here at the access token, I have inserted a string value. What is this value? Well, this value is a preview API key token provided from Storyblok. So by inserting the value, or assigning the value in the access token property, I'm able to create the connection between Storyblok side and Gatsby project, so that we will be able to, retrieve the data from Storyblok side and also, create the connection between. I'm going to show you quickly where you can find this preview API key token in a second, but before that, a quick note. Don't hard code the preview API key token like this. I think some of you have already realized, but I do this because it's demo, so I don't have nothing to worry about, and it's easy. But for a production environment, I recommend you to do the environment variable files to set up. Anyway, so moving on to, not this site, right here. So when you log into the Storyblok, and you can create your project. We call, at Storyblok, we call project as space. So this is one of my spaces. And from here, when you go down to the settings, here is where you can find the preview API key token. So instead of going to general, this time I'm going to click the API keys, and by default, you already have a generated preview API key token available. So just quick question, is it too small to see? Too small, okay, I'm gonna make it bigger. How is it? Better, okay, good, thanks. So back to the topic. So here is the place where you can find the preview API key token. And if you want to generate the public API key token, which we are actually going to use to deploy this project later, you can do that by easily choosing the access level as public, and then click Create Token button and click Save button. Then you're good to go. So we were able to create a link between each other, Storyblok side and Gatsby. Then now we can move on to the real-time visual editor. But before we go into the visual editor, there is very, very attractive option available. Sorry, it's a bit smaller, but it says try Storyblok V2. So just last Monday, we enabled to use all the Storyblok users to test it out, V2 beta. So everyone who has the account at Storyblok will be able to test it out, our shiny, brand new V2 beta. So let's test it out. And here is the place where you can take a look at the visual editor. Right now, I haven't yet set it up any fundamentals yet. That's why you don't see something relevant stuff right now. But we are gonna get there like in a minute or so. And to set up the fundamentals, first of all, I would like to check the preview URL right here. So it's obviously dummy. It says just quick start me storyblok.com. So that's not the preview URL. We set it up. And to change that, well, from the settings in the previous screen, you are able to add the localhost. I think it's also still small. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so from settings, you're able to add your localhost. And as long as you add your localhost from the settings, then it will show up in here. So Gatsby is running the project by default at localhost 8000. So I'm going to choose that, and it's going to show me HTTP is not allowed. So in V1, we were still allowing to get give access, but from V2 we don't do that. So we need the SSL certified localhost path. And to do that, there are a few commands you just need to run in your environment. I've already done before this demo because it's gonna take a little bit while, and I don't want you to spend time with me with being awkward, pause silent moments. So I've already done, so don't worry about it. And instead, I'm just going to run this command in my terminal. And make sure to change the target because by default, from where I copied, it's still 3000. Oops. So changing into the 8000, and now the SSL certified path is generated. So that's what I've actually already added the path from settings. So let's choose it. And 404, but don't worry about it, it's already expected. So I'm also not getting panic because I know this will happen. So the reason why we are seeing 404 is because, well, this preview URL is still not correct. It's ending with /home. And I don't like this, preview URL because it's not pretty, right? So I want to get rid of this extra home. So to do that, I can choose this entry configuration icon from up above. When I click it, it will show me the option of real path. So in the real path, I can fix the path like this, and let's save it. Then, there you go. Now I see the current progress of my Gatsby project displayed. So now we have the fundamental that, okay, we're ready to display the content when we create one. And before we are going to start to create the components dynamically. First of all, I want to test it out. Am I able to retrieve the queries from GraphQL? because Gatsby uses the GraphQL. So I want to test it out first. Testing is important, right? So to do that, I'm going to display a name of the entry. Entry, you can imagine, if you're not familiar with the Headless CMS or content management system, you can imagine similar to the pages. So I'm going to display the name of this entry home in somewhere right here. And to do that, I can go to the graphical, which is an IDE provided from Gatsby side. So from graphical, it's a little bit tricky name because it has a small I. So from graphical, you're able to test around how the query works, whether you're able to get the queries as you guessed or not. And yeah, you already see that this one query, which is heavily related to Storyblok side. So I have created the connection between Storyblok and Gatsby project. So that's why I'm already able to choose from right here. And there is an option of a name listed up here. So let's check it out, what kind of value this name query has. And when I run, there is a home. So it seems like I'm able to retrieve the queries by using these query path. So let's copy that. And moving on to VS Code. This time I want to open a index.js file under the directory of pages. Just checking. Can you see the code clearly? Okay, good. So after open up an index.js file, so here is where I've called the queries like this. And after calling the queries, I want to pass these queries into a React props. So that's what I have declared this data props. And this data props contains the queries in it, the one I have tested at the graphical. So I don't want to, write all the, full path, every single time when I, retrieve the data. So to prevent that, I partially store the queries like this in a story variable. And let's test it out to display this, the entry name in the scope of JSX right here. So let's comment out. The story variables contains the rest of the path that we have tested out at graphical. So if the path is correct, I should be able to see a home displayed. Let's check it out. There you go, home display. So our test has been successful. So now we can move on to create components dynamically. And to do that, well, by default, Storyblok already provides you 3 default components. I mean, if you don't need these components, you can delete and create new, of course, but just to give you a better idea what kind of components you're able to create, we already provide 3 default components, which are teaser, grid, and feature. So after creating your own components, or you can use these components from Storyblok's visual editor, then as a developer, you want to see an overview of the data layout, right? For content editors, I mean, maybe they don't mind opening up each single component and seeing the field type's name, but we don't want that. It's taking too long time. And instead, there are 2 types of the JSON files available from Storyblok. So you can choose either draft JSON or publish JSON. You can choose depending on whether this entry has been published or not. In this case, I haven't yet published, so I'm going to choose this time a draft JSON. And let's take a look at it. And remember, teaser component had one single field type called headline, I guess. So if we check it out, need to spell it right, headline, there it is. And there's the value, hello world, in it. So my first aim, is to display this hello world. And yeah, enabling the feature for content editors will be able to add these teaser component and edit by themselves. And to do that, I can check it out, how I can reach to this headline. So starting from story, there is the content, And inside there, there's the body. If your eyesights are good, you can see it's array. So, we can map maybe later. And there's the headline in it. So basically, I just need to follow these paths in the components file. And to do that, let's move on to the VS Code. And we are going to create a couple of components, right? Not just single component. And we want to create dynamically. To do that, we can create one special component file, I would say, because this component file works a little bit differently compared to the rest of the components file. So let's name this file as a dynamic component.js file. You can create this file under the directory of components. And what this dynamic component.js file does? Well, this file, first of all, imports the component files and store these components in an object. So after dealing with these component files in that way, like I explained, there is the conditional statement. So basically, if there are components, then we are going to return the components like this. And if there are none of the components are found, then I'm going to display at least the log to tell, the component of something has not been created yet. So that's the first, step to move on to create the rest of the components. And I haven't yet created any other components yet. So I'm expecting to see 3 lines of the component something has not been created yet. But to test it out, first of all, I need to import this dynamic component file in an index.js file. So let's import it. Import it first. And of course, we need to call the component in the scope of the JSX. I can do that directly, but I like to keep my code clean, short, and nice. So I store these dynamic component in a variable like this, so that I just need to call this components variable, in the scope of the JSX. Then I will be able to keep my code clean, at least, and short. So let's call the components and see how does it work. Let's give a try. Reload. Okay, I'm seeing an error. I guess now you can tell that I'm doing a real live demo, right? So now we see the real error. But it's telling me a really good message. So can I read properties of undefined reading body? So I forgot a very important thing. I forgot to test it out whether the content query retrieve the data or not from GraphQL. So I'm going to test it out. There must be a content in it because we have seen that from draft.json file. So there it is. And let's see whether we are able to get the queries or not. Seems like we are getting. So I forgot to add this content query at VS Code. That's the reason why. And let's comment out. And there's one more thing. I haven't yet parsed the JSON in an object, so that's also could be causing the reason for that. So let's save it, give another try, reload, and there you go. Now we see that we are one more step closer to reach one of the goals, right? So I think we are almost there to be able to display Hello World from teaser components field type headline. So to do that, let's create a teaser component file. You can create this teaser component file also under the same directory of components. And here, I already know the path, but the reason why it's because, well, we saw how the data layout looks like from the draft.json, right? So the thing we did actually in here, when we called the dynamic component, we were already passing the partial path in here because anyway, all the content will have the common, data path to, until the body. So we are already passing that in an index.js file. Then we are mapping remember, I kind of mentioned about, okay, body contains an array, and we are storing multiple components objects in it. So that's what we are doing it. And from here, the map block prop is passing the beginning of the partial path to each component files. And that's why I was able to pass these partial paths to this block prop. And I just needed to fill out the rest of the, data path. So after that, then I can import this teaser component in a dynamic component file. Let's import it. Store the component. Sorry for my pronunciation. English is not my first language. So store the component in an object, and let's see how it works. Well, now we see, sorry, I guess now you're seeing like how I was testing before this talk prep. It's supposed to be hello world, but if I refresh the cache, now you will see that unexpected stuff will happen always at the demo. Anyway, we're gonna get there like in a minute. So yeah, there you go. There's the hello world display. So yeah, we already proved that we are able to create components dynamically so that we can create the rest of the grid and feature components. And just to give you an overview how grid looks like, grid contains several components inside. It means that grid component works as a parent component. So this grid component can map these child components inside of it, so that the child components will be able to return, the values that are stored in the data. So let's start to create from grid. Let's moving on to my VS Code. You can create this grid.js file under the directory of, again, the components. And from here, we have a full hands-on blog post tutorial, including the source code. So I'm not going to explain one by one, but the most important part is right here. So here is what I was explaining you. You saw that the grid component contains the child components inside, so it works as a parent. So as many as components are going to be added into the grid component from the content editor side, we don't have to change any source code because we map. So just we need to chill and relax. And as a child component, feature.js file, you can create that, again, in the same directory. We need to pass the final destination of the data. So let's take it out together, take a look together at the draft JSON, because we haven't yet seen this path. There is the image. Let me first, I guess, show you from the visual editor side what kind of field types we have. So there are 3 field types. There is a name, there is the image, and there is the paragraph. And that's what we want to return in the end as the final value. And to take a look at, of course, for a developer, it would be easier to see an overview from JSON file. So that's what I have, checking out. And there is the image inside of the columns array, because we contain several components, remember, inside of the grid. So from image, there's the name, seems like. So I filled out the value as feature1. So yeah, we can get the feature1 strings from there. And yeah, from image, there's the out value that we can maybe store as in out attribute. And there's also the file name that you can store as the source attribute. And there's also the paragraph. So we have all the paths we need, and that's what I have written in here. So block prop, again, contains the rest of the partial path, starting from index.js, and then it passed into the grid, and then there you go. There is the final destination to retrieve the data. So all I have been, all I added in here is just the rest of the path, which we haven't yet, figure that out, but we saw that in JSON file. So that's what I have written in here. And if everything works, we should be able to see all the components are displaying from the visual editor, right? So let's import these grid and feature component and store in an object, save it. Let's give a try to reload the content. There you go. Now we see all the components are dynamically created. In fact, now you're seeing the components are displayed. But here is but. Actually, this is not yet fully real-time visual editor, in my opinion, because what I mean by that to say real-time means live editing. I want to see when I type it out here, like let's say from hello world to hello or something like this. I want to see that this left-hand side of the real-time visual editor is following me, adding these like many O's like as I type, but I don't see that yet. So this is not something that I can call as the live editing. So to enable that, you can combine a toolkit provided from us. It's called Storyblok JS Bridge. And you also can combine a React custom hook. So let's get done. To do that, well, we go to the VS Code, and we can create a custom hook file. I store this time in a directory of libraries lib, but you can name, like, for example, utils as you wish. So at Storyblok.js file, the one I created for custom hook, I'm not going to, again, explain line by line, but I'm going to tell you about the summary, what I'm doing in this custom hook file. So basically, this custom hook, use Storyblok, contains two important functions. So starting from this add_bridge function, well, this add_bridge function adds the script tags for clickable elements. So as part of the feature of the real-time visual editor, I also won't be able to click every single element displayed in the visual editor to be able to click. Then, by enabling this clickable feature, I don't have to click manually from the right-hand side of the sidebar to choose the field types, etc. So that's what this add_bridge function is doing it. And the second important function, init event listeners. Well, this init event listeners are enabling the important events that are happening at the visual editor side. So what kind of events? For example, input or delete, publish, unpublished, change, etc. Basically, all kind of events that are happening when content editors are changing the content. So that's what basically this init event listeners are doing it. So we already, declared two functions. The rest of the step we need to do is to import this custom hook. So let's do that quickly in an index.js file. And by importing it, of course, I need to call. So I'm going to call something like this. And you may have realized there's actually a second argument in it. So going back to the Storyblok.js, there is a location argument already, have stored in here. So I also need to pass when I call this useStoryblok custom hook. That's why I've called in here. At the same time, I also need to pass this local argument. Sorry, not local, location. Hard to do the multiple stuffs in one time. Anyway, and here at the custom hook file, there's actually a one line which looks very similar. We already parsed the JSON, right, before in an index.js file. But I stored in here the custom hook, because before we didn't have the custom hook, but now we do. So we don't want to duplicate, the code. So I'm not gonna have this extra code. So let's comment out and see how it works. But before going that, there is a very important function provided from one of our packages. So earlier in this demo, I have installed the Storyblok editable package. So the Storyblok editable package has a function called sp_editable. So sp_editable will enable the feature to be able to, edit the component from the visual editor. And to enable that, all you need to do is just wrap the components that you want to edit and pass the right props. So let's save it and give another try. And there you go. Now you see some dotted line wrapper. Am I correct? Yeah. You see that the dotted line wrappers are surrounding all the elements. It means that we were successfully able to enable the full feature of the real-time visual editor. In fact, if I click here, and let's delete this hello to something. Oops. Hello, NDC Oslo. Now you saw that as I typed out, you saw the text are following as I typed. And yeah, that's the feature I wanted to have it. And it helps for content editors to see how many kind of characters are gonna be displayed in what kind of balance, stuff like that. And real-time visual editor is not just typing out the text in real time. You also will be able to, for example, let's say if I don't like this feature 2 hero-ish like image component display in the bottom, I can just easily change, like by just click and drag and drop like that. And now the orders are changed. But while I'm doing all these, changes, I'm not like giving any impacts at all at the production environment, so that content editors will have much more freedoms, to edit the content, without getting the help from the developers. So for developer side, we just need to build a fundamental for them. As long as we build the fundamental, then content editors, marketers, anyone, even from the sales team, they will be able to, create, the content by themselves and add the components as they wish. So yeah, awesome. And there's one quick note, because this project, this demo, I built with a static site generation. So which means that if I save the content, now there's a problem. You don't see the most updated content displayed in here. And I guess this is not friendly for the business users. What do we do? So for the business users, if you use Gatsby or some other frameworks, Gatsby has, like I said, a default server, hosting service enabled. So from the Gatsby's cloud, there is the CMS preview feature enabled. And they also, updated and made it much better from their V4, upgrade. So yeah, from the CMS preview, you will be able to see the most updated version of your content. Because as a developer, we can just refresh. But for the business users, they don't want to touch any code, right? So for them, there's an option for using the CMS preview. All they need to do is just click in 2 buttons from the Gatsby Cloud dashboard. But for developers, when they're developing the projects, there is an option from Gatsby. So you can add the NPM script to enable this refresh data button. So by default, it doesn't show it, but when you add this NPM script, which you can take a look at details at the Gatsby's documentation, then you're good to go. When you reload, now you see Hello NDC Oslo is available. So that's the first task I wanted to achieve in this demo. And there's final task we want to see together, which is deploying this project at Gatsby Cloud. So let's publish this content and moving on to Gatsby Cloud. So I'm gonna zoom up. When you log into Gatsby Cloud, here's the dashboard you see. So in this case, I'm going to add the site, completely new. So I'm gonna click this add site. And in this case, before this demo, I have created a GitHub repo for this project. So that's why I'm going to choose this import from a Git repository. And choosing GitHub, and choosing the right organization, and choose the repo that I'm going to create a site here. Let's change the name for NDC Oslo. Click next. And in the next step, we can use a webhook. So for webhook, we have 2 kinds of variables. First one is the build variables, and the second one is the preview variables. So for this, I'm going to name as Storyblok access token. And I'm assigning the build variables, which means that I want to have the public API key token. So to get that, remember we saw the settings earlier at the Storyblok side. So that's where I'm going to go back. So from the settings, there's API keys. There you go. There's the public API key token that I wanted to use. So let's copy, then store as in a value. And there's one more value we want to, one more variable we want to assign, which is a space ID. So every spaces at Storyblok has the unique numbers of the IDs. So that's what I'm going to assign. So Storyblok space ID. And to get that, it's also in the settings. This time, instead of going to the API keys, we are going to get the value from general. And there you go. So I'm going to copy that, insert the value, and don't forget to, put the preview variables also. In this case, I'm going to grab the preview API key token. So yeah, let's go get from, again, settings, then API keys. There is preview, API key token, insert the value, and I'm going to use the name from build variables to shortcut my time. So Storyblok preview access token, and space ID is something that common value you can use. So I'm just going to copy from what I have already set up before. So let's get done. Oops, there we go. Save it. And after the values are saved, then we can click Create Site. And after a few seconds, then there's a final step, because we haven't yet, seen the webhooks, value. So we are going to take a look at from Site Settings. Then the left-hand side of the sidebar, there's the webhook. We are going to trigger the webhook at build time. So that's why we are going to get the value from build's webhook. So let's copy that and store this value at Storyblok. So from settings, general, then there's the webhook. So here is what I have already inserted the value, the one I just copied, and hit the save. Then we are already good to go. So let's check it out. Now we see the, build has started, but to make you wait for another awkward 1 minute with silence, I don't want that, so I have already deployed in a different site. So now you can see how it will look after the deployment, because the first deployment will take a minute or so. That's too long, in my opinion. So there you go. Now we have deployed our project at Gatsby Cloud. And I guess to deploy this project took like maybe within 5 minutes or less, I hope. So it's not that hard, right? So yeah, to create the, just the fundamental, developers need to, create the fundamentals for the business users. But after that, business users will have much more freedom by themselves to add the components, as well as taking a look at the layout, changing the layout even, and publish it by themselves. So that's what I mean to say the Jamstack approach that works for everyone. So to wrap up my presentation or talk, let me share a couple of slides. I'm not going to take too long, I promise. So if you want to take a look at the source code, here is the GitHub repos URL. I'm going to share the my slides from slides.com. So I'm going to share this URL to the Slack channel in room 6. So if you want to see that, check it out. And of course, if you're a developer, you want to play around and want to advance, right? So we have hands-on blog post tutorial for building up the simple multi-language blog project, so that you will have better idea of how you can, let's say, use the internationalization integrated in it based on what you have seen from today's demo, etc. And if just in case if I talk too fast or my pronunciations are not clear, there is the hands-on blog post for the Gatsby Cloud hosting. So if you just want to take a look at the hosting part, and there's the hands-on blog post tutorial available at our website. And of course, as a Headless CMS, for developers, we have much more freedoms to choose whatever kind of technologies we want to use. So we have the full resources for example, if you're more Vue person, Next person, or Next, even Svelte, or some other languages, PHP, Python, Ruby, there's the full resources available at our technology hub. So you can get access from this URL. And if you want to more dig deeper for the Gatsby's, source, there is also Gatsby's dedicated technology hub available too. So you can also check it out from there. And not to forget, just for this NDC Oslo, I have created a 3 months free trial. So if you or your colleagues are interested in, there is the 3 months free trial available for our Teams plan, which means you will have some chances to, use such as e-commerce integrations, etc. But of course, as a developer, you don't want to wait this kind of, extra time signing up stuff. Just in case, for those of you who want to shortcut everything, then creating, a account for single user is totally free. So, if you don't want to wait, there's an option. And last but not least, I want to say a huge, huge thank you to my Storyblok team, because I'm the one came to or was able to come to Oslo and enjoying to communicate with you all and have a nice time giving a talk. But without the effort of my team and the support from my team, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I want to say a huge thank you for them, as well as a huge, huge thank you to you, to all of you, by choosing to watch my talk and being in here. So and if you have some of the questions related with my talk today, I'm very, very happy to answer your question. So I think we have a couple of minutes left over. So I think, you can shoot me any question. So thank you very much. That's what I wanted to share with you today. And if you're interested in to know more about Headless CMS, especially Storyblok, here is the URL that you can take a look at it. And there's also a Discord community available. And you can chat with us or our DX engineer, as well as DevRel engineers like me to help you to find the solutions. So again, thank you so much for watching my talk. And any questions?
So the live preview thing, the preview site there, it doesn't have to run locally, does it? Like it can run on any server, so you don't have to have business people running the local website?
Yes, true. So one of the solutions that the real customers are taking is that, they can first of all create the preview environment. So for example, for content editors, they wouldn't be able to run in a local environment, right? Like you said. So for this case, you can create or use the, let's say, Gatsby Cloud for preview environment. And you can deploy from the different branch, let's say for the preview branch, to trigger the webhook and to deliver the content. But you also can do that, but as I said, you also can use the CMS preview if you're using the Gatsby Cloud. So you don't have to configure for them,
But can that integration live in production code as well?
Yes, of course.
To preview a production website in that sense?
You mean not separating the preview environment and the production environment, or?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is it the same code running? Like, could you target the Storyblok interface towards your production site that just happens to have some sort of Storyblok, the use Storyblok hook?
I'm trying to understand. So you want to differentiate the production environment source code and the preview environment source code?
I'm just trying to understand how the preview works. Does it inject custom content into an existing site?
Okay.
Or the other way around?
So for the, how do I say, script tags are being added from the, how do I say, I'm trying to find the right words. So script tags are being added when you're using the real-time visual editor feature. So the production environment is not using that, right? Because unless you're gonna deploy, you don't trigger these. So that's something a little bit separate topic. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions? Okay. So if not, or is there? Okay. Then I'm going to hang around a little bit. So I'm leaving tomorrow, but if you have some other questions and find me, then just ask me questions. I'm very happy to talk to you too. All right, so thanks everyone.